from the Minister of Health in charge of adolescent and school health. You're also very welcome, Agnes.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Once again, I'm Agnes Sebowa. I work for Ministry of Health, and I'm the Senior Technical Officer in charge of adolescent. In other words, issues of our young people in and out of school are handled in this department.
For children from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, I will also be joining us on Zoom, and we'll also have a representative from the civil society organizations. And just told here that Miss Namukuza Olga will be also joining us later on. And that's when they get through to us to just have this engagement and the conversation going on. Let me get to Mr. Yeru here, the National Youth Council Chairperson, to run us through, first and foremost, sexuality education and sexual-related health issues that we talk about today.
Thank you. First and foremost, I would like to thank the organizers of this platform, UBC, and the partners that have put this together, enabled this, the AIDS Information Center. And the topic, it could not be better framed for young people in the country. Sexuality education in Uganda is beyond an aspect that is just representative of government intentions. It's a necessity for young people. The population in Uganda is so young, and yet the fertility rate in Uganda is one of the highest in the world. When we're talking about the fertility rates of Uganda, they have been swinging between 6.2, 5.3, up to the time when they were 7.4. I don't know if it has gone lower. The experts at health would know. It's now at 6.2, she says. So it is important for us to understand how that fertility rate plays out. It's not actually that every woman in Uganda gives birth to that number of children. It's that population growth curve of Uganda. It can only happen that way if you allocate about 6.2 children. It is most likely that when you meet a pregnant person, you're most likely meeting a young person, a person that is not yet 18. In Uganda, when you meet a pregnant person in this lockdown, you're most likely meeting someone that has gotten pregnant out of a poor choice, a choice that they did not intend for. So what we are actually saying with sexuality education is to say we need to have a conversation as a country about, even though we have a very young population, that population needs to understand the implications of choices they make and how those choices translate into their lives and how they're affected by the choices they make. This is the intention. There have been reservations, and those reservations are well hinged on certain challenges in our community and its organization structure. I'll give you an instance. We have a situation where faith-based approaches in community development advocate for one agendas that perhaps could say, for instance, in my faith, could say no sex before marriage. But at a policy level, you would have to deal with evidence-based policy. If you insist on a position that does not actually augur well with the facts and the data that comes from the ground, then as government, you are not responding to the needs in the community. So I am more than happy that we are talking about the sexuality education framework, and I am more than glad that the necessity is visible, and even more in this lockdown period and this pandemic's exposing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you so much, Mr. Yeru. Let me come to Agnes here. Agnes, in 2018, a government launched the National Sexuality Education Framework under the Ministry of Education and Sports. And it received a lot of resistance from different stakeholders, from the cultural leaders, from the religious leaders, and quite a number of people, citing lots of issues in there that they really feel shouldn't have appeared in the sexuality education framework. And I do not think whether the government has started implementing this, because from 2018 to date, with all the challenges embedded in there, let's just get to that first and foremost. Is that National Sexuality Education Framework being implemented? Is it of venues? And did you even just decide to go forth with it, even with the resistance from the would-be stakeholders who would help you promote and promulgate it?
Thank you very much for giving me yet this another opportunity, and I'm very glad you've even quoted the year in which our sexuality framework was launched, and I am glad we have colleagues from Ministry of Education where the framework is housed. But for us as a sector, for us services still go on. There are policies related to that, and I'm happy to inform you that for us as a sector, we are still implementing, because we appreciate that our young people, both in and out of school, have challenges that are SRR, HR related. And besides institutions being against the sexuality framework, from the information we have, there were consultations that were made at that time. And maybe from our colleague from education who will come in, I understand that there are more engagements at different levels concerning the sexuality framework, and I know it is going to be scaled up in the different regions of Uganda. Yes.
Well, I think some of the voices that were against the sexuality framework is not that they were against the idea itself of a sexuality framework of sorts, but the ages that were included in here is thinking about getting sexuality-related issues to children who are below, children who are in kindergarten, and I think that this is where the contention was. To get to primary schools, because for many of us who went through these primary schools, we had senior women teachers in secondary schools, and quite a number of those. We had those. And the idea was, or the contention therein was, that how do you get to these very young ones? And now, let me get it from you, the experts here, talking and advocating for this. Yes, we have a problem that for every women that you find, or for every pregnant person that you find, don't be surprised to find that many of these actually are underages. And the question should be, when should we start the conversation of sexual related issues to our children, our community?
Thank you very much. Let me take you back a little bit to appropriate. And when we talk about age appropriate, the information given is age appropriate. For example, I would not expect you to give an 8-year-old information that is not related to her age group, because with the early years of development, there are issues to do with knowing your body. How should I keep my body clean? Issues to do with hygiene. Those are the early years. My body, why should I keep my body clean? Why shouldn't I walk naked? Why should I do this? Generally, when you look at that framework, the information that is provided is age appropriate. Yes.
Is it okay to you if you've interacted with it?
Yes, the sexuality framework is very good. Only that the challenge is that our people have not yet contextualized about the framework. But if they contextualize the framework, I be able to appreciate it. If they get time to go through into the nitty-gritties of the framework, when it goes to the different age groups, I wouldn't expect a 14 or a 6-year-old girl to be taken through information that is not really age appropriate. And I know the various people using it are trained. They are trained on which information to give. So I should let our viewers know that the sexuality framework has no problem. It gives age-appropriate information. You know, with the public, when someone hears sexuality, the first thing that goes to their mind, it is sex. But that is not true. Yes.
Okay. Let me come to you, Ayaru. When should we start getting into these conversations of sexual-related issues and you know, gender-based and stuff like that? Because we belong to cultures, or we belong to that are very cozy about sexual issues or sexuality education issues, that these things. What do you think needs to be done, and when should we get into such conversations?
Well, I think that we need to first appreciate where we are with the conversations that are necessary. Where we are is such a place as families leaving their children to be groomed by either the media or leaving the children to be groomed by the school. In more cases than not, you will find that families do not engage in these conversations openly with their children. Fathers are not comfortable talking to boys about body changes at any time of their lives. Mothers never talk to the boys. You find that perhaps the only time a mother will talk to a girl is when the girl has gotten a weird challenge, perhaps beginning their menstrual cycle, and then they come report. And all of a sudden, they are in this situation where they have never heard of this, they don't know what this is, and this is something that you need to avoid early. Now, that is happening in the same space where we are having a development of different facts, that you're not talking about these things of choices, but here is the data on children engaging in sex at an early age for different reasons. I can tell you that some of the most painful stories we are hearing from the lockdown are stories of people who are saying, I had to do this because I did not want my boyfriend to leave me. I had to do this because I did not want people to laugh at me at school. And this is again the construct that Agnes talks about. Sexuality education has very little to do with sex itself. It is a whole construct of how people manage changes that come naturally to their life. So about when you start talking to them is appropriate. And I think that because these things are age, some going late, some going early. The same thing for ladies. Some get their menstrual cycle starting way earlier than the age of 13, 12 for the majority. Some are at 9. So when someone gets into their menstrual cycle, the intention of this conversation is that they are not surprised by the existence of that. They are not scared by the existence of that. The framework provides a very appropriate balancing, and she has hinted it, but I'd like to even go deeper. The age-appropriate conversation context is really the catch. You are saying that for the ages of 5 to 10, this is the target communication. For the ages of 10 to 14, this is the target of communication, such that the part of the executors, if the age appropriateness of conversation framework to us, people that would be helping us go through this, are already people that we're already trusting with our children. I'll give you a vivid life experience we can all relate to. In a year, we spend about 8 months in school. Without the pandemic, you'll have a primary school or a secondary school, 8 months in school. So most of the time you spend in the year is with your teachers. And the information,
280 days.
Exactly, and the information that the teachers are providing to you is not supervised by your parents, is not supervised by fellow teachers.
It's at their discretion.
Exactly. So there's already a trust environment that we give one single individual in class. I think that that training can be able then to be permissible for the presenting of this information, that they're already trained in age-appropriate talking. These are people who will teach chemistry 1 and to senior 6 and say different things. They will teach biology to senior 1 and senior 5 and say different things. They will teach SST to P7 and to is about the lack of understanding of the context. But also, like she said, people have not actually interacted with the framework, the sexuality framework. They just hear about it and immediately go into their sentimental positions. And that's where policing should not happen. We shouldn't have policy formulation and employment like that.
Because I've personally read this sexuality framework, and because I've personally interacted with it, that's why I'm sticking to it, because I look at it as a document, yes, that is here to help and to aid us. And one of the things, Yokele made a very clear observation here over sexuality and sex itself, because when you talk about sexuality issues, many people run to sex itself. And some have actually castigated the naming of the framework as national sexuality, thinking it possibly should have not held the word sexuality for some other thing. We lost marriage and divorce discussions because there was a divorce. Now many people are saying you can't propagate for marriage and again talk about divorce, but yet you know, this is like you know, carrot and stick. Someday there will be divorce somewhere if it actually happens, but the argument was you can't talk about marriage and divorce. In the same way, talking about sexuality, I think, is what caused issues. Is there a better way to name these things to make sure that we can understand? To you, Agnes, when you come to school and say she is a senior women, you know, but I mean your title, and you introduce yourself and say, what I'm coming for here is to talk about sexuality education. Would you be understood that you are actually not going to talk about sex, and let's talk about the naming itself?
I think besides the naming, let's first understand, besides the naming, what information are you going to give that is coming from the content? The content. That is the most important thing.
Content is the most important thing, yes.
Content is the most important thing. But when it comes to the naming, I think we just need to sensitize our people. on what it is. When we say sexuality, it doesn't mean sex. We just need to sensitize our people on what sexuality is, so that when I go to a class, so that when I come to the adolescents within the youth-friendly facilities giving health information, I will be very, very much understand. If I am engaging parents on what information to pass on to their children, I must have sensitized them on what sexuality means to them, get to their faces.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, I'm just told that we have Commissioner Mondo Chateka on Zoom joining us. Mondo, let me gender, labor and social development. Are you with us now?
I'm with you, I'm listening, and I'm enjoying the discussion.
Okay.
And at an appropriate time when you invite me, I'll be able to participate fully in the discussion.
No, please come into the conversation now. I'm happy that you're there. You can hear us, and you are very clear and audible. Speak to us about these issues of sexuality that we are talking about. Having seen or having heard from Ndugu Eyeru here and Agnes in studios, let me pick your mind on sexuality issues, especially the sexuality education in this country.
Thank you very much. And you got lost from me, but I'm happy to catch up with you during this program.
I am never lost. I am always here.
One thank AIC together with National Council that have put this together with support from NFPA, Minister of Health, Minister of Gender. I think this is a fundamental issue that we must talk about. Issues of sexuality education are not new. You recall, moderator, as a Mugarman, that we used to have an institution called the aunties. The young girls would put off time to go and meet their aunties, to be told about the anatomy of their bodies, be told about growth, be told about the changes that take place. And so it's not a new thing that people with education is what it is saying here, and is what my sister Rosette and Agnes have talked about. We decided as a government to come up with a sexuality education framework for the in-school. What was left for the Minister of Gender is to come up with sexuality education framework for the in-school. And the framework is but a guidance on what can be said, on what can be done, how it can be done, where and how. So I can say very quickly that the lack of sexuality education in the real sense is part of what has made teenage pregnancy escalate. I have learned through the different documents I have read that when young people know the facts, they will act on the facts and decide to behave better. But if we pretend and don't give them the right information, the right guidance, then we are not parenting. So that takes me to the issue of being parents, that we must be parents. And if you cannot talk about your children about sexuality, guidance, then the aunties can do that. They need guidance. They need guidance to know, rather than struggling to explore, and also sailing through misconceptions and myths that makes their life even more complicated. And therefore, you as the media crews, we as the parents, and I know that we can all do this together, and we can have a better community together. We cannot afford to continue talking about 25% negative pregnancy in this country. We cannot afford to continue talking about the medium age of sexual debut being about 14, 15, 16. What type of human resource are we creating as a country? So I think now that the parents, you have more time as you sit home during COVID lockdown, it is important to introduce and engage with the children that you have sired through your own choices to guide them on these important issues. And, that takes me to what Cynthia from Arua was saying, that GBV and the teenage pregnancy has become a habit. We need the involvement of the girl child themselves to say, no, it shouldn't be a habit. It is abominable, it's unacceptable within our culture. Many of our cultures condemn young people becoming pregnant while they are still within their mothers and fathers' homes. And so we need to carry some positive aspects of our cultures and share those that are negative. The FACA study indicated that people who grow up in violent families become violent. As government, we carried out a violence against children survey, and we found out that young people, when they grow up in violent families, they become violent. And that young people who grow up, who were born by mothers who were below age, they are likely also to do the same. That's why in this country, we have the youngest judge at 26 years.
The second youngest in the world.
The second youngest in the world.
And of course the youngest in the country.
When she was 13, she produced, and the child also produced at the age of 13. So at 26, as we are saying, she becomes the second youngest grandpa. Moderator, you and me know that for you to be called a grandpa during those times, you had to have gray hair and much more gray hair than I do have. And perhaps more hair than you have on your head. Now, these days, you have some gray hair.
Yes,
now,
I have some gray hair.
A child, and you are told this is a grandmother. How? What type of human resource are we going to produce?
Okay.
We need to focus on the family to ensure peaceful coexistence. Let the children in homes and be peace lovers.
Mr. Chateka,
we need to know.
Mr. Mondo,
yes.
Hold it there. You've made some very good observation here, especially when you've highlighted and talked about the youngest grandmother. I will come back to you because you are government and talk to you about the social development aspect of it, because we have put a lot of emphasis as a government into infrastructure development year in, year out. When you look at all our national development plans, when you look at all our development, everything, there's a lot of emphasis on infrastructure development as opposed to social development. And this is the way it is, because if somebody produces at 13, then the best they can do is actually look after that young, a child is giving birth to a child, so you have to look at the child, and because you can't take them to school, you can't do anything, then at 13 they also produce, and the cycle continues. Let's welcome to this conversation Mrs. Rosette Nanyanzi, the gender advisor from the Ministry of Education, to speak to us. Madam Nanyanzi, are you with us?
Yes, I'm here with you.
Very good. Rosette, I'm happy to hear from you, and thank you that you can actually hear us and you can talk back to us. Before you came to this conversation, we were talking about the National Sexuality Education Framework, which is under your docket in the Ministry of Education. Is it being implemented, and is it not having any hiccups or issues from the other stakeholders?
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you, the host, for this program. First of all, I have to appreciate that the framework was developed. Along the way, we had hiccups with the name, but actually the framework is being implemented. Like Agnes has already shared, it's not about things that are new to us. The framework actually talks about the key challenges that I've had in the discussions with the young people today. Issues of teenage pregnancy, issues of arranged marriages, issues of gender-based violence, issues of HIV and AIDS among young people are still existing. So the Ministry of Education developed this framework. As we launched the framework, now people woke up and started asking about the name. But for us as the Ministry of Education, much as we are still having stakeholders about the change of the name, maybe you can call it life education, but the key issues finalize the guidelines for prevention and management of teenage pregnancy in school settings. And these guidelines actually are stipulating what communities need to do, what schools need to do, what young people need to do to prevent violence from happening. Ministry of Education is already handling and running programs on menstrual health and hygiene amongst young people. We have seen that this is also one of the drivers of teenage pregnancy among our young people. So these are programs that are running. We are running programs on gender-based violence and violence against children. The statistics are alarming. Like my brother Monda has already shared, the statistics are actually worrying. And as a country, we cannot sit back and wait for the approval of the name. We should be able to do something. And maybe what people didn't understand about this framework, it is a guidance. And for us to operationalize this guidance, Ministry of Education had a responsibility of developing resource materials, which are age appropriate, but also culturally acceptable in our context to make sure that we deliver sexuality education to our young people. And this is happening already. Life skills education programs are going on, because if a girl cannot say no, like the issue I've had in Arua, it means that then we have a problem in this country. So our young people also need life skills. And as education, we've been doing this. But now that the children are not here with us at school, what do? The children are within the communities. And I think that is where my brother is emphasizing the aspect of very critical. All the problems that we've had as a country is money and not in playing their role of parenting. And I think that is where the problem is. Thank you.
Okay.
Back to you, moderator.
Yes, thank you so much, Rosette. We'll come back to you. Let me come to studios meanwhile, and I'll go to Ndugu Eyeru Jacobia, the National Chairperson of the National Youth Council. Two things coming out from our seniors on Zoom, Rosette and Chateka, and they are zeroing to parenting. But you also notice that from Mondo's submission here, he's just revealed something that we all know about, a 27-year becoming a grandmother. Now, that is not something to pride about as a country. But yet again, when we talk about parenting, now where is parenting for such a girl? And these are quite a number of them. Now, they who give birth at 13, and they've only maybe not just become grandmothers or so. But where is parenting now when we talk about that, especially when we're discussing sexual reproductive health issues?
Thank you. That's just one example. There was a dominant story on social media about a 15-year-old mother of 3 in Kasese that emerged because of their own experiences in doing nothing, okay, and needing to still remain relevant to even herself. And that was the best way to do it, was to get something that would look like a marriage and have a boyfriend who eventually lay with her, and she bore child. I think that the challenge there in parenting is for a young lady to reach that age and not know that lying with a boy could get you pregnant. They've never heard about it. They have not heard about it in their community, if it's an out-of-school child, or even in the school, because we are concerned about the naming of what that
in their
process.
Innocence and ignorance, they are now parents.
Exactly. So that lady did not stop there. The first time it happened, she was very sad about it, but the boy came to say, no, I can still be around, don't worry, I actually love you. And then lay with her again, and she got pregnant with a 1-year-old, actually not 1 year, months old, about 3-4 months old baby, and got pregnant again. The reality is that parenting in our communities is more about giving orders to children than about giving them a knowledge about everything that's happening around them. Every time we degrade ourselves by insisting that children don't act and react to what is in their society, we don't understand that we are actually not fulfilling the role of parenting. And so the question would be, if a child is able to access these conversations either on social media or on broadcast media, on the different TV shows, even just being able to access things as simple as music videos or news content, a child is able to tell that there are very many things happening in the world. Now, unless there is a voice of reason, and that's the part of parenting we're talking about, the voice of reason prevailing over that child to guide their thought process, to guide their decision-making process, you do not end up with a child that has been parented well. Of course, in Africa, they say it takes a whole village to raise up a child. And I think this is what we are actually saying with such frameworks, by saying that, no, we understand. In some cases, parents are between a rock and a hard place, that you find single parents have for the family, and the breadwinning has to happen Monday to Monday. So there's not even enough time to have conversation with the child. But it's also incumbent upon the parents to make sure they can find that time for those children. Unless community begins noticing, unless church begins noticing that it is important to fill the gap that is left in the parenting of today, we will not be able to meet the needs of our society at our pressing points, which is in the high level of teenage pregnancy, in the high level of sexual activity by those young children. You know, it is easy to say that we do not want to talk about sexual education, to use the term sexual itself, and forget that most of the young people that actually engage in sex at a very early age, some don't even know that is the sex. Some are actually just being procedural, you know, with this boy, and things are just happening and they don't know. The boy is also probably not in the knowledge of the same. So unless we accept that the facts show that there are so many that are engaging in it, therefore we need to use our spaces to have communication around developing their minds. Young girls may not know that that's not somewhere a boy is supposed to reach when we are having a hug or when we are talking in society. Even the defense mechanism built up by having these conversations is very important. And for me, that's where my concern is, that parents would rather their children do not have conversations with certain words, and that's agreed. But we have grown up, we know these many words, and we don't use them. It doesn't mean that the knowledge of something therefore leads us to its execution. In fact, in more cases than not, you will find that the knowledge of something gets us to understand how to behave around it. If you do not know to crack a lockdown joke, if you do not know that LDUs don't have a lot of explanation, you might go there and think you can explain yourself away. But if you know that, then you will basically follow the command in the lockdown.
Okay, because this is actually powered by the AIDS Information Center, I'll come to Agnes here and talk about information itself. Are we giving out the right information? Are we giving out timely information? Is the information that we are giving disseminating in as far as sexual reproductive health issues is concerned? Is it the real message that we're supposed to be giving out to the people?
Thank you very much yet for this another opportunity. I think for us it's not all about only information. The Srhr HR services are integrated. You will not come and talk about nutrition, then you come back and talk about this, or you see a child going to clinic A, clinic B for this, they run away. To begin with, you cannot have all what you're saying without having coordination. At national level, we have relevant technical working groups in charge of adolescents and young people in our country. And when you look about with different line ministries, different civil society organizations and private sector, and this coordination extends even up to the district level. For example, at the district, we have a district committee in charge of adolescents within the district, and when you look at their composition, we have also young people there. It is also extended in the sub-county, because our young people and adolescents are found within. So if you don't extend, if you don't, because VHTs at community level are trained. When we are giving this information, we train them. How do you identify a child who has been sexually abused? How do you identify a child who has mental health problems? Our health workers are trained very well. Come to data. These national statistics we hear of. We have invested in data. We've updated our data capturing tools to see to it that we capture some of those pertinent indicators within. Besides the data, we've also extended to bridge the information gap. Now I'm coming back to the information. We've bridged the information gap through having our young people also trained. We've developed communication materials. Communication materials talking about nutrition, communication materials talking about HIV, communication materials talking about growth and development, because we know it very well that issues to do with growth and development are clearly linked to the pregnancies we are seeing here. This child will see her body changing and she'll say, now it is me, with this common slogan that I am the one. And it will be very easy for someone to convince them or lure them into sexual acts. So issues to do with growth and development, menstrual hygiene management, all the communication materials speak to those issues affecting our young people. Alcoholism and substance abuse, that is one biggest challenge the country is grappling with. So with those communication materials, we know it very well that we have children in different contexts. We have translated the communication materials in the 23 local languages of our country, and we believe that our young people are able to get it. And even the VHTs, if I can tell you one of the roles of our VHTs, because they are found in the community level, they will tell you that in my cell, there is girl A who got pregnant, but she has not gone for antenatal care at the health facility. So with our VHTs, they give information when they are conducting home visits. These adolescents who are pregnant and refer them to the health facility. And they follow them up until some of our young people in the community who may not access materials. We have a call center. Because we know it that our children have issues that even go beyond violence. So there are issues to do with menstruation, there are issues to do with growth and development. I remember in the last 2 months, we got 50% of the callers. And when you look at the report, the issues that were coming up were related to growth and development. The issues you call small are the ones eating up our adolescents. The issues we call small are the ones luring our young people into engaging risky behaviors.
Agnes, I want to thank you so much, because you've attempted or answered one of my questions, because I wanted to know what the Ministry of Health is actually doing doing about GBV and SRH after doing the lockdown, but I think you've done very well by getting me to that. If you are ready, I will welcome you to the conversation, Namukuza Olga. But to you, Commissioner Mondo, and to Nanyanzi, I have a question for both of you. I just want to know what your ministries are actually doing about sexuality education. I want to know what the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development is doing. Just like Nanyanzi also help us understand what the Ministry of Education is also doing to enhance and to make this get to the desired end. Welcome, Mondo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jagenda. Those are pertinent issues that you're asking. But let me start this way. Let me say that people should appreciate that teenage pregnancy is a death trap. Either the child who gets pregnant process, either this child will die during pregnancy, or this child who makes this young adolescent pregnant is a murderer. And I think, Jagenda, in all sincerity, people who do this should be charged accordingly. That these are murderers. You are making this young person die, but even the child you have put into this child is also likely to die. And so let's take this discussion to that high level, that this is serious. It's not a joking matter. It's not a joking subject, like Gurura would say. This is not a joking subject. Asking me about what the Ministry of Gender is doing. One is to try, first and foremost, to ensure that everybody is on the same page. Crucial duty of sexuality education. My sister Nanyanzi has already mentioned that when we came up with the sexuality education framework and the means of education, there was an uproar. But that has not stopped us from going forward. We are changing a few things, but also this, in a way, influence the speed at which we move in terms of coming up with sexuality education framework for the out of school. We are trying to be as cautious as possible, and we are documenting every step we take in coming up with this sexuality education framework for the out of school. So as we polish the sexuality education framework within schools, we are also developing the sexuality education framework for the out of school and ensuring that the cultural and religious leaders have a buy-in. But also, very importantly, ensuring that the parents understand their responsibilities as parents. The family, the community, all these come together. You see, the ministry that I work with is responsible for community development. Community development is being hyped now to ensure that we respond to all these things that sometimes have hindered development. And with marshalling of resources here and there, we should be able to get there. But the agenda, I want also you to know, and others out there, that the cost of GBV in this country is 77 billion, according to World Health Organization. 77 billion per year. I mean, this is unattainable. We have a lot of things to do, schools to build, hospitals to build, roads to build. If we spend 77 billion annually on fighting violence against children, including sexual abuse of children, then I don't think we are getting our priorities right.
No.
Can I make an update?
As you conclude.
As I conclude, I've heard the young people say that we need to be given a voice. We need to be put on board. We need to be involved. I'm happy that my young brother, the chairperson of National Youth Council, is there.
Jacob
and he knows what my views are. Young people should not sit on the fence and wait to be involved, wait to be told to do ABCD. By virtue of the fact that you are a leader, invite yourself in the meeting of the LCC and see whether you'll be chased away. Don't sit on the fence. You know, freedom is not given on a silver platter. The icon Mandela pointed out in one of his books.
Yes.
There is no involvement to freedom.
Okay.
And the involvement of young people in this, it is their thing. It is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I just want to wish you the best wherever you are. Let me get to this conversation, Nanyanzi here, as time is running out. Rosette, let's hear from you what the Minister of Education is doing. Very briefly, because we have about 8 minutes to be out of here.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you, my brother Mondo, for elaborating on what government is doing. As Minister of Education, our intervention is under the socio-ecological model. We look at the adolescent themselves, we look at the networks around them, that is including the family, the communities, and through that we have done a lot of work around capacity building, about integrating SRGB and gender into the teacher education curriculum, because we believe that it's not time of COVID. We are doing a lot of messaging using our stations, radio stations across the country, and we are talking about issues of child protection and prevention of violence, elimination of teenage pregnancies. We are trying our level best to disseminate the guidelines that we developed on prevention of teenage pregnancy, where we have a role. We have a lot of work going around on menstrual health and hygiene, like Agnes has already shared. This is one of the key drivers of teenage pregnancy. And of course, parental engagement, and this is within our Education Act. The Act empowers us to engage the parents through our structures of the school management, but in the event, still the role of the parent needs to be emphasized. So,
cutting short, in 1 minute, your final message to the parents out there and to the people listening in and viewing.
In this period of COVID, our parents should support our young people, should talk about the issues that are challenging our young people. Young people used to get information on growth and development from teachers. Right now is the time for parents to open up and speak about these issues for benefit of the younger people in this country.
Thank you so much, Rosette Nanyanzi, the Acting and Gender Advisor, just right at the Ministry of Education and Sports. Coming back to studios to close it here with Agnes and Jacob. in studios. I'll start with you, Agnes, and maybe both of you will just help me answer this in 1.5 minutes before we get out of studios. 1.5 minutes for each of you. We are living in very unusual times, and it's now parents with the children. You talked about it earlier on. 280 days plus is what we used to have children with the teachers in schools. They are now with us, and every other morning they wake up and look at you, and we possibly do not know what to talk to them or to say to them. Your final comment on that to the parents now who need to endure to live with the children as far as issues of GBV and SHR are concerned. Agnes.
Yes, thank you very much. I think my humble comment would be that the fact that my colleague mentioned our children are still now at home. Let us work with the existing community structures for information, because I know within the community services can easily be accessed to. And then also back to parents, let us not go back into this slogan of our government. As parents, let us freely embrace our responsibility. Let us come back to our responsibility. Let us not prevent our young people from going to the health facility to seek Srhr HR related information, because without information, our young people will be lured into engaging in risky behaviors. And I forgot to tell you, Mr. Jagenda, do you know that when you look at maternal deaths, our adolescents contribute 17.2% of those deaths? Yes, and when you go into numbers, that is statistic that can really make you cry. Exactly. So we encourage our parents to work hand in hand with the existing community structures. Those are the VHTs, the LCs, to see to it that our young people access the services. Much as we are amidst this pandemic, but remember also other diseases are there, infections are there. You prevent COVID and then you get HIV. So let us protect our parents, let us protect our children from engaging in risky behaviors. And we also know that mental health challenges related to living with COVID-19 amongst our young people. So let us support our young people. Thank you very much.
Jacob.
Thank you. I think the parents in our country now have an opportunity. It's a burden that they are not used to, but it's also an opportunity to redefine parenting in the way they have done it over the years with their children. They have an opportunity now to shape the conversation that is actually appropriate for their child, and the child must get to build that rapport with the parent and the confidence to actually tell their parents about these things. These children are at the ages where their testosterone levels are very high. That's why 96%, according to UNFPA, have engaged in acts of violence among youth and young people. And so you need that kind of conversation to become commonplace in a family setting, in a parenting setting. And that is where I look forward to. And I also say community leaders need to now take initiative at home to see how to use the places where these children gather, football pitches, when the girls gather, to use those opportunities to add in a voice or two in matters that are about gender-based violence and SRHR related issues.
Thank you very much, Ndugu Eyeru Jacob, the National Chairperson for the National Youth Council. Thank you very much, and for having allowed to join us here. Thank you so much, Agnes Seboa, from the Ministry of Health. We appreciate you. I want to thank Commissioner Mondo Chateka from the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, and thank you so much, Mother Sister Rosette Nanyans, also from the Ministry of Education, for also being with us. Now, we've missed the opportunity of having Olga representing the CSOs, but nonetheless, we've managed to put forth a few thoughts here. I also want to appreciate very much this conversation has been powered by the AIDS Information Center, of course, with the other partners, the Government of Uganda, ACORD, and UNFPA. Thank you very much, and of course, thank you so much to UBC TV for also bringing this live too. You're there. My name is Jagana Semakola Ziksoka, wishing you the best, and it's time now. Border borders are not riding on the roads, so we need to again run because curfew starts at saa moja ya usiku. Baraka nyote, good evening.